Welcome everybody to the Bay Area Salesforce Developer Group September virtual meetup. So as you can see here on the slide that we're sharing, tonight's topic is Salesforce AppExchange, various topics. We're entitling it Unlocking Success with the Salesforce AppExchange. So we've got an amazing all-star cast here tonight. Look at these folks. And also I want to just lay out a few simple rules since we're in this virtual environment. We all have to play nicely together. So let's have everybody on mute except the person talking, unless otherwise we open up audio for some reason. Probably won't, because with this many people on, it doesn't work so well. But if you have any questions directly for the guest, go ahead and post them in the Zoom chat, and Jody will be kind of moderating, and in case the guests don't see the questions, she can unmute herself and ask the question on your behalf. Also, we have a Slack channel. Hopefully you're in there. It's called September-2020-Meetup, and that's in our BASF Doug workspace. If you're not in there, you can find the link back under the Trailblazer Community Groups page for tonight's event. But that is a place where you can all interact. You can do like side chat. So imagine if we were like all in a physical room, over Salesforce Tower, something like that. This would be like the area where you're near the back of the room, or you're, water cooler talk and stuff like that. So also, if you want to ask questions in there that maybe get answered after tonight's program, or if anybody has links they share tonight, I'll post them in there. So the Zoom chat only exists while we're doing this, but the Slack chat will live on past the meetup. So we have those two channels. So as you can see, here's our guest for tonight. I'm gonna do a quick intro. They may wanna do more introductions for themselves or introduce each other. But we've got Brian Walsh, CEO of CodeScience. You see him right there in Brian's office with the nice plant. Mike Wolff, SVP of AppExchange. Hey, Mike. Asterisk Loftis, he's there somewhere. I don't see him on my screen, but I saw him earlier. Senior Designer, CodeScience. We have Latrice Barnett, who's Senior Director, ISV Go-to-Market Programs at Salesforce. And then we have Sean Hogan, Chief Revenue Officer at CodeScience. So a nice mix of CodeScience people and Salesforce people. We've got them paired up, kind of two pairs and one solo. So the first talk, how to get started as an ISV partner. Second talk, how product design is different than building in a single org. And third talk, first steps post. I think that's security review jargon there to find commercial success. And hopefully it's some good variety. So keep us interested in our Zoom burnout attention deficit world that we're in. So thank you very much, CodeScience and Salesforce, for putting this program together tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Walsh.
Awesome. Thanks. When Jody and Cynthia and Daniel invited us, and thank you very much for the invitation, they gave the general topic of come talk about the AppExchange. And I thought, boy, what a narrow subject. But with the audience that we have here, really, our admins, our developers, very technical crowd, we thought taking it from the perspective of you have brilliant ideas, you've been in the ecosystem, you know how to build. How do you become the next big entrepreneur on the Salesforce platform? How do you take this idea to market? How do you get started? What are those steps to take an idea to a customer? And hopefully do that many, many times. So gathered together, we just did a little round of introduction, but we'll go across the board here. Mr. Wolff.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Brian. I really love that tree that's growing in your room there. It's beautiful. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Mike Wolff. I run our global ISV team. I have the opportunity to work with incredible partners on a daily basis that help solve customer challenges. And I've been at Salesforce for about 18 years, and this is an honor being on this call. So thank you so much for inviting me today. I see so many names and faces that I've met over the years, and you all are legends. So this is awesome to be here. So thanks for having me.
I'm Brian Walsh, CEO of CodeScience. I'll introduce CodeScience in a second, just give a little background of why we're involved in this. But Asterisk.
Hello, hello. I'm Asterisk Loftis. I do product design at CodeScience, and I do it well. We make awesome things that are useful and delightful for people on the Salesforce platform.
Thanks, Asterisk. And Latrice.
Hi, everyone. Latrice Barnett, and I work on Mike's team at Salesforce. I lead our ISV pipeline programs team. I've been at Salesforce for a little over 6 years, and I have the best job.
And she's a rock star. And Mr. Hogan.
Hi, everybody. Sean Hogan. Live in the Bay Area, so happy to chat with this group. We finally got some good news today with the A's winning a playoff game for a long time coming, so I'm excited about that and excited about this session. I've been in the ecosystem for 10 plus years, 4.5 at Salesforce, working on the ISV team, then working at a partner, and now working at CodeScience, so happy to join the call.
He is officially the adult in the room. Grandfather adult, however we want to reference Mr. Hogan. We want to walk you through 3 basic concepts on here. What are the first steps that you need to do? And then a conversation that Asterisk and I had about 2 weeks ago is he spends an enormous amount of time with our clients really talking through, hey, I know that you've been using Salesforce like this, but when you build a product, you need to use it like this. And we thought that that was a really healthy framework to really bring to everybody here to get a head start on. And lastly, Latrice and Sean's job are how to help make commercial successes. So they want to give some of those first 6, 7 steps that you can do to get on your path to making money at this. So let's jump right in. Background on CodeScience, we're one of the founding members of what's called the Product Development Outsourcing Program, or PDO group. It's a small little slice of the consulting ecosystem. So generally when you think of consulting partners, you think of ISVs building all the apps. You think of consultants working with all the customers. We sit right in the middle. We work with ISVs to help them build products for it. Over the last 12 years, we've actually built over 300 products for the AppExchange. So everything from really tiny, small, 3-4 person startups to the likes of Accenture and IQVIA, and been very honored and privileged to work with Salesforce directly on building some of the products that they bring to market. So we have a really wide variety of experience across industries and challenges that are being solved and approaches that people are taking. So a lot of times we come into these conversations just trying to bring that wisdom and knowledge to you. In the consulting ecosystem, we look at the Salesforce being customer being in the center of the world, right? How do you create customer success? How do you leverage the Salesforce platform to digitally transform a business? In our world, the ISV is the center of our world. Everything we do is around ISV success, from ideating what a product's going to be, to building it, to get it through security review, then talking about how it's going to be commercialized, how you support it in production, how you demo it and sell it, followed by how do we actually deploy it to our clients? How do we build out a deployment ecosystem for it? So our goal is to help every single ISV, regardless of even if they're our client or not, to help every ISV thrive on the AppExchange. We think it's the best way to produce outsized returns. So we have some resources. We'll post this deck. Daniel, I'll get this deck to you and we'll figure out how to get this out. Great resources on our blog that we're posting constantly. Even if we never work together, I really encourage you to take advantage of all these resources. We have a marketing team that's only creating content for ISVs on how do you build, why do you build, what should you be building on, et cetera, et cetera. So please go check that out. But let's start at the top with Mike. It's your group that we work with on building products. Why would somebody build for the AppExchange? What is the AppExchange?
Well, first of all, Brian, I just want to say thank you to you and CodeScience for the amazing partnership that we have with your team. Again, we've talked about this. You've been a mentor to me personally, and the insights and that you and your team drive with your voice of the AppExchange annual report is awesome. And I encourage everyone when CodeScience releases it here shortly to check it out, because you'll get some incredible insights on the overall ecosystem.
Go on.
Yes. So let's talk about the AppExchange. So I just feel really fortunate to lead our global ISV team, where again I have the opportunity to work with we have close to 5,000 different partners who have built solutions that then we leverage the AppExchange marketplace to access our customers. And so again, we have over 150,000 customers, as everyone knows, across 100 different countries. What's really cool is that just the wide adoption of the AppExchange. More than 91% of Fortune 500 companies have installed AppExchange applications, solving all different types of needs across an organization. The cool thing from a technology perspective is that, and you all know this from being trailblazers here, is the rapid speed of development that the AppExchange provides our partners. Brian, if you want to go to the next slide, this shows a little bit of the trajectory of the journey that we've been on. The key thing here is more than 8 million installs across our customer base. The marketplace, more than 90,000 peer reviews. It's incredible to see how the best solutions bubble up by customer adoption and feedback. And as you can see on this slide, just all different types of solutions that solve different needs in the marketplace. Now, the thing that I imagine you're sitting there thinking, okay, this is great. These are, you've been in the ecosystem for a while. A lot of these companies. What I want to emphasize here is that, we talked about entrepreneurs starting a company to build an AppExchange solution or to be a part of the ecosystem. What I want to challenge everyone on this call is, I imagine many of you work at other organizations. I want to challenge you to be intrapreneurs. What are the solutions that you're building for your company today that other companies could leverage to solve similar challenges? And you can think about leveraging the AppExchange to distribute that technology. You can think about leveraging the AppExchange to distribute and monetize that technology to create alternative revenue streams for your company. Those are just a couple of things to think about as Brian and I go through this first part today. So how do you begin? At the end of this, if you're interested in learning more about the AppExchange and becoming an ISV, there are 2 primary resources for you, and we put them in very small font. The first thing is to click on the link at the top, and that will direct you to the sign up page, and a member of our team will follow up with you to learn more about the solution that you are thinking about building and help take you through the process. And then the link below, our ISV onboarding guide, walks you through the simple steps it takes to, from inception to first report of going through the ISV process.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, simple 6-step guide to get you there. They've really
simple 6-step process.
Simple. It only takes you 6 years, each one.
Yeah.
Broke it down to 2. No, it's a fast platform. When we build products, I think there's a simple, healthy way to really think about what a SaaS company is actually doing, especially at its inception. And I break it down to 4 key pieces here. First part, there's a problem in the world. You've identified a problem. Now we're solving this. We're going to use the AppExchange for distribution, right? So now we know that we're focusing on business problems. It's not any problem. It's not the problem with your toilet. It's a business problem, a problem that businesses face. Once we have identified that problem, we identify who has that problem. Who are the individual humans that experience that problem? We make a hypothesis on how to fix that problem for those people, and then we go test it. That's all we're doing when we create product, right? So let's walk through a use case of it. Salespeople are having a hard time in getting contracts signed. It's slow. COVID, I can't see you in person. I can't make it happen. We need to close deals and make business go forward. The people that are feeling this are the salesperson. Salesperson can't hit their number. The hypothesis is I can create a solution to do digital signatures rather than paper signatures for the salesperson. And I'm going to create this solution, sending out a text message to them and getting it signed. So I build that and I test it. I come back and I've either nailed it and that works and people want it, or I have to go back and identify each of those pieces. So maybe I've gone back and I didn't identify the correct problem, or maybe the persona I picked, that person that has the problem, it wasn't broad enough. There weren't enough of them. So in this case with electronic signature, I had to focus on the buyer and the seller. Maybe I have to focus on the sales manager as well. Maybe my hypothesis on how to fix it was incorrect. By sending a text message, they didn't trust it. You have to send an email where you can provide more information. So you're going to go through that loop as many times as you can, as fast as you can, to get to a place where your hypothesis solves this real world problem. That's our goal. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Salesforce is we can model and test so quickly these ideas. We can build something using declarative tools to test an idea and get that out there and market. So when we've gone through and we've created our product per se, here's the beta we want to take. Now we have to look at what are the bigger steps that we want to take to market for.
Yes.
Mike, that's where Salesforce really comes into support.
Yeah, in the 6 simple steps. And I'll say up front that none of these have 4 syllables like hypothesis that Brian just mentioned. So what are the 6 simple steps to bring an app to market successfully? And we're going to touch on these quickly, but they're plan, build, distribute, market, sell, and support. So Brian, why don't we just quickly go through and touch on each of these areas?
Well, I used a hypothesis. You used alliteration with 6 simple steps. It's nice work.
There we go.
Planning. These are things that you guys know, especially if you've been on the consulting side, you've been inside the partner community, you know how to leverage that. Everyone knows how to use Trailhead at this point. It's a huge resource. There's tons of content specifically for ISVs, walking you through, going in much more detail than we're doing here. There's also an ISV guide, and I normally have it printed out sitting on my desk. I do. This is the ISV guide for Winter 20. This is your Bible on how you build for a product, right?
Nice.
That is going to talk about all the features, what's packageable, what's not, etc. Great resources for you to have.
Awesome. Talk about build, and the next step is stage.
We're building, right?
Yeah, sorry, build. Sorry, you flipped it so quickly there. So yeah, so incredible tools to help. And again, everyone on this call is familiar with probably Salesforce DX. But Brian, I think from an environment hub perspective, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how that benefits developers here in terms of building on the AppExchange.
If you've been working directly for an organization, a customer, and doing it, you may not have used Environment Hub very often. But historically, way back in the day for us old folks, going into the partner community, spinning up orgs was your process. Now that exists within your org as an app. The Environment Hub allows you to spin up as many orgs as you need to work on your product. And that could be all different types of orgs, test orgs or development orgs or production orgs, etc. So you can actually go through and test. So it's a great tool that you'll learn to use as an ISV.
All right, here's the one that we all love, and that's distribute. So the power of the AppExchange is the ability to package and then distribute the technology through the AppExchange marketplace. And so there's an incredible publishing console that provides companies and individuals and entrepreneurs to list the solutions that they build. And then of course there's the AppExchange where you develop your listing and it provides you the way to reach our customers with the solution that you've built.
Market, how are we going to market our product? How do we actually let people know what this is, why they should use it? The same tool that Salesforce uses. So if you go to the Salesforce site and say, I want to try out Sales Cloud, I want to try out Service Cloud, they use TrialForce to do it. Spins up a brand new org, fully configured, has data in it. That's available for you as an ISV. The license management app, how you manage who actually has licenses for your app, how they're being used, whether engaging all the app analytics that comes with that. And lastly, Salesforce is aligned with you of trying to generate sales. And so there's an entire marketing team that not only sneezes on webinars, but they provide you with guidance and access and tools, and they provide you these power hours of webinar tools. It's huge to help you understand how to leverage Salesforce as a channel and improve your business.
Yeah, Brian, I just want to note that when the individual sneezed, the number of viewers on Daniel's Twitter stream went from 4 to 9. So that's effective.
AI works.
Yeah. So again, it's great that we're identifying a challenge and then building technology and marketing it. Again, it's all about, all right, now how can we help partners and founders, sell this technology? And so there's a couple of primary tools that Salesforce offers around. We have a channel order app that makes it easy to sell the solutions. We have a checkout solution that makes it easy for customers to purchase the technology as well. And then we have a number of different resources that we provide companies around just how to run more effective businesses, whether that's how to market, how to sell, how to support, how to operationalize your business to help build out a strong organization.
And finally, our last S in the alliteration, support. We need to be able to not only bring it out to market the first time, but ensure customer success, debug our application, look for problems, push patches, push full feature upgrades to it. And again, Salesforce is leveraging the same types of technologies they use themselves, and they provide that to ISVs. So push upgrades, the ability to keep everybody on the exact same version. It's funny that we're still having this conversation 20 some years into Salesforce's existence, but one of the huge differentiators is we're all on the same version, right? So many other platforms don't enforce that, and Salesforce provides you the tool to make that happen, which is great. And then lastly is the same way that Salesforce supports you in production, where they can log in and see what you see within Salesforce, they provide that to you. So you can actually see what your customers are seeing in production and resolve their problems. What I want to point out is when you build for other marketplaces, you don't get these tools. You may get infrastructure, you may get databases, you may get memcache, you may get front ends, you may get servers and instances, but this is about distributing. It's a holistic process of technology and distribution. To me, that's how it creates these outsized returns, because you can move so fast and they're there to help your growth, which is awesome. Mike, this was a question that I think Daniel brought up early on. What are the different licensing types? There's
a couple of different licensing types, and this is a little bit of inside baseball, so we'll just spend 30 seconds on it. And again, we're happy to have further conversation here. But the key takeaway that I want everyone to take away from is when you think of the ISV Force licensing type, that would be for the use case that you're essentially targeting a current user of Salesforce technology, right? So you're going to build something that sits on top of Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, et cetera. If you're thinking of creating a solution or a company that does not primarily have a Salesforce, that is primarily not a Salesforce customer, that's where the OEM solution could come in. And we were joking at the beginning, like, are there situations where there's Salesforce customers that also have OEM solutions? And those are things that we're happy to talk about further as well. So. And then Brian, the last section you have for us is org types.
So org types. So this is a key piece for you, right? Because this we've seen so many times people get stuck on this one piece and it derails them for a while. When you sign up as a partner, you get 2 different orgs, like right out of the bat. So they give you your partner business org. This is a full Sales Cloud org. It's got all of the tools installed that you need as an ISV. You have 2 licenses. It's free. You can start running your business from it. It's awesome. But that is not where you should develop your product. That's where you run your business. Where you develop your product is the partner edition orgs. And you're going to get partner developer orgs, excuse me, but you'll get a ton of those that you can spin up out of your environment hub. But that's where you actually do the development. Those are the ones that allow you to package your product into a managed package, where you use a namespace, all the things that go on it. We've seen so many examples where people build stuff within their PDO and then try to submit that, and it just doesn't work because they can't figure out how to package. So the first guidance for you is move that into your PDE and get going. So we said, how do we think about building a product out there? What are some of those steps that we need to take, and how can Salesforce support us? Key decision around ISV Force versus OEM. And then what org am I going into? Before you put hands on keyboard, I think it's really important to look at how do we think about products differently than building in your sandbox and pushing a change set. For that, Asterisk is a legend.
Ooh, what a seamless transition. I see what you did there. Okay, well, that's what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to talk about design for productization. And we should define a couple of things when we do that because we need to. And I'm a Zennial. So we're going to have a bunch of memes in here, and that's what you're going to have to deal with. All right. So product design, that's what I do. I love. We're creating. It's user-centered design. You can read the paragraph there, but it's user-centered design to create a product. All right. Productization, it's a big part of this. It's taking those concepts, those things that you love, that you think will be great to sell, and turn that into a product. So the key here is that you're gonna really need to shift your mindset from working with closely with your maybe end users in your org. People see day to day, it's Phil, he's in the cubicle down here, what he needs. You can hook him up with a little component. No, you need to think of beyond Phil, beyond his needs. How do you turn it into something that the Phils of the world are going to need? How can you extend that? How can you sell that? Productization. So we do like to talk about the end user, but when we're productizing things, we need to talk about the key personas that are involved with the success and adaptability of adaptability. That is a word. I'm going to use it, of your product. So these people that oftentimes aren't considered at the forefront of this, we're going to pull them in. We're going to think about them, and we're going to define them a little bit. Now, I challenge all of you, when you take this with a grain of salt, make sure that when we're talking about the decision maker, the Salesforce admin, the developers, that you're also doing your research around how are they, what are the specific versions in your vertical or in your lane. So these are more general things, general personas that we're talking here. So the decision maker. Now, what's important to them is, weird noises in the background. What is important to them is that, the ROI, the value. What are you going to do? How is this going to help the company? They might be the ones with the money bags. You want to definitely make sure that you can communicate and express that to them within the design of your product, okay? So Salesforce admins, they're probably looking at, oh my God, why did I give them admin privileges? These people, we've all been there, are the people actually using and configuring the product that you're going to be selling. So you definitely want to craft and understand the experience for them as well. And last but not least, the developers. These people are going to be integrating to your product, extending it. How is it extensible? How can it play with things that they have developed in their org already? So these are the three key personas that we're going to consider as we go through and talk about some product design strategies and best practices for a Salesforce platform. Next slide. Okay, so the first thing is, as my man Drake is showing here, you need to leverage the platform. Not leveraging the platform, that's a problem. Leveraging the platform is where you need to be, okay? And I do this at CodeScience with, I call it design strategy, it's a escalation. So when you have the idea, the solution, the product that you think is gonna be, boom, this is gonna be great. Before you get too far into breaking down the features and user stories and all these things, let's do a little research. Research any standard components of functionality that might be available, because you can pull that into your solution. How far can you get the record page layout? How far can you get the app builder page layout to define your solution? Before you start building anything crazy custom, see how far you can get. How far can you configure those components that exist today in a special way that the specific people that you're hitting or targeting will need it. There's a million different ways that you can set up a record page. So many different ways with dynamic forms and report. How far can you push that to not only help them get their job done and do what they need to do, but also make it to where you're not spending all this time with technical debt and things that could be easily extended. And when you run into a wall or run into a situation where you're like, you know what, this doesn't exist. I want X, Y, Z thing. It does not exist yet. That is when you develop a custom component, a custom piece of your solution that can integrate well in with the rest of the platform. So what you really want to do here is design the custom component with SLDS, the Salesforce Lightning Design System, in a scalable way. When I say scalable, you want to follow the semantic markup in a way to where it can be leveraged and extended. You're not going to create a bunch of crazy CSS or, oh, I'm going to create these dope drop shadows. If you follow the SLDS guidelines, you could create something that could exist in community. It could exist in Salesforce proper. It could exist anywhere that you deploy it. Now it could be themed and changed, and everyone's going to get that love. Now, if you go in there and you create something crazy custom that no one, that you have a bunch of basically hard-coded values and stuff in there, it's going to look like trash when people change their themes, and when they change the way that they want their org to look, it won't match. It won't scale. So those are things that you want to definitely consider when you're designing things. So these things are important. No, that's good. We can move there. These things are important, but what's more important? Yes.
Just make sure you watch it.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So what's more important is not just the end product, because we're really talking about the experience of how someone's going to be using it, the admin and the developers. And as you see here with my change my mind argument guy, admins deserve a first-class experience, okay? And what I mean by that is, as you're developing what you want the end user to be able to do with your product, you also at the same time need to be developing the experience that you want the admins and the developers to have with your product, because they are going to be the most critical people with adoption. Like if you make it painful to use, they're going to trash over your product. They may not use it. And that word of mouth is going to just keep going. So there's some things that you can do to make sure that doesn't happen. First of all, you have a more complex, this articulates you very well. If you have a more complex product, go all in. You might need to develop a small app, or at least an app page or something, to configure all of that product. You might need to do that, and that's totally fine. That way you're keeping the admin users, the people that are configuring this, at the forefront. You know, they'll be able to easily do this. There's not a lot of back-end stuff they need to do. They can do it all within the platform, and they don't have to do any special training around it. They just kind of can see and go for it. As you see here with this Lightning Web component, there's a lot that you can do with these to make the user experience really delightful. There's so much that you can do with the meta configuration for custom components that allow variables, different things that you can add to it declaratively, so it doesn't need a lot of development. So in this example here, it's showing that the app build experience, you know, it behaves one way when it's on one side. It automatically does it for the other side, so you don't have to think about that. They can see clearly. As you far right, you can see that it's got different configurations that you can change. You need to embrace those, and you need to assume that the end user they're going to make these changes. The most intelligent thing you can do is try to embrace that and like foresee what things they might want to change. Should I allow them to change the icon? That's a big one. I should allow them to change the icon. I should make that extensible. They're going to want to change the list view. Okay, I should definitely make that available. Think about that experience, because that experience will be echoed to your final end user. Okay, so beyond that, beyond worrying about the the admins and the developers and the our personas, there are other things that you want to integrate and make sure are all kind of streamlined with your product. And this is the Touchpoints. Touchpoints, they're like the custom interaction with your product over the whole journey of your product. The first place that you definitely want to make sure that you can excel at is the AppExchange page, because this is the first place you're going to go. You want to do a few things here to really stand out from the rest of the crowd. You want to be able to show the value to the decision maker. You want to be able to show that you have documentation, or maybe if you have an API or something you have built out, that though you want to be able to link off to that for the developer. And for the admin, you want to be able to show how easy it is to use. I found personally that having a video is the easiest way to kind of demonstrate this. Demonstrate the value immediately so everyone can be on the same page and they'll know what's going on. It's like, oh, okay, that's easy. Oh, they got the options I need. They won't have to go back and ask the questions. They can make that decision right there, buy it or not buy it, or figure out how they're going to use it. So that's very important. Documentation. What I mean by this is not only the documentation has to be on point for external facing, like an API or something like that. Your documentation inside of your code also can be very great too. It can be very helpful if someone needs to integrate to it. So that's very important as well. And having your own website that kind of mirrors what's going on the AppExchange listing. And we can go to the next page where I can do my shameless CodeScience plug. It shows how we're echoing the same message across. That consistency is important because that builds legitimacy. And having your own website for for your product. It could be like a single Git page. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it's like a calling card. You definitely want to have something outside of just the AppExchange page, if you can, to really further detail anything that's going on with your product. And that way you have complete control of it too, so you can really go crazy with your brand. So those are really, some of the big things that I think that people may not consider when they're trying to productize a solution that they're delivering. These are the things around your product. The end product, you know what the solution needs to be, but let's try to use some of these strategies and it can just make it that much better. Remember though, that you need to iterate and improve and get that feedback, continue that feedback loop. There's a lot of, Salesforce is a big community and a lot of people are talking. Just like how Salesforce itself, you know, you can end the feedback, you can upvote it, you know, you scream loud enough and a lot of people get a lot of people together, they're going to put that feature in. You need to listen to your people that are using your product as well. Do the same thing. Drive those improvements. And remember to continue that iterative design process. Very similar to what Brian showed at the very beginning. Continue that loop. Just keep iterating and making your product better and better and better. And before you know it, you'll have like a suite of products, and you'll be a force to reckon with on the AppExchange.
Asterisk, thank you so much. You're such a passionate man and skilled at this, so thank you.
No problem.
Sean, Latrice, what do? We got a product, it's been designed, we've thought about how to integrate it, make it consistent, listen to our users, design for admins and developers. What next?
Oh, it's time for the dream team, Brian. It's time to start selling this stuff. Time to start supporting it and having a lot of fun in market. So how do we get there? Why don't we jump into a few slides? First, Salesforce is a very welcoming ecosystem, and they bring anybody from two guys in a pickup truck, small startup, to very large companies. Regardless of your revenue stage as a company, when you create an app, you need to start the process of thinking about the revenue of your application. And as you build revenue, the team that you put in place to begin with is going to change over time. So the first thing we want to point out is the awareness around connecting the application that you just built to the team that's now going to market it, to the team that's now going to support it and sell it. And the way we like to coach people through that is, next slide, please, Brian, is to start thinking about key functions to strategy within your organization. Some of you are very small, and that's okay, and individuals have to take on multiple functions. Others have larger companies, and they can start leveraging the strategy team to the product management team, to the sales ops team, to the sales team, etc. But start to think, who in my organization knows about the application, the value that Asterisk was talking about that it provides, the outcomes it provides, and start the process of educating those teams and getting them aligned to a common function and environment. Next slide, please, Brian. And when you're at revenue zero for your app, that's okay. It's actually a super fun, super exciting starting point. So let's talk about the small steps you got to get into that position. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the things we're honored with is Latrice, and she is just a domain expert in dealing with a ton of ISVs and their messaging. So Latrice, please provide the details of what you and your team do and the great advice we talked about for any young, new entrepreneur.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. And thanks to the entire CodeScience team for having me here today. Really excited. So a little bit about what I do. I have this kind of funky title, ISV Pipeline Programs, right? But what it's all about is really helping our ISVs find ways to succeed in this ecosystem. As Sean mentioned, I work with ISVs all across different areas of their life cycle. Some are at the very beginning, they're all very excited. Some are kind of like been doing it for a while and started to get into a cadence and a rhythm. And some have been at it for a long time and they've already diversified and have various different elements of their product out there in the market. So the one thing that I'll say, this is kind of a funny looking slide, right? It's got a couple of it's not usually how we think of a bullseye, right? That's because the objective here is to focus, right? We want to make sure that we're focusing on our end goal here. I think that this whole journey, like so many things in life, starts at the end, right? With your customer. And just to kind of echo what Asterisk was talking about, really keeping your customer perspective in mind is where it is all at. You're not going to get to that happy endpoint of everybody realizing that they need your solution if you don't think about what that person, that end user really looks like and what they need, and really try to get to know them and then figure out all the paths. Once you figure that out, all the paths to get there will kind of like, they'll make sense. You don't kind of open up you don't jump in a car and decide, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to start driving and see if I get there. You have a destination in mind and you make sure that you get there. You take the right turns, and usually, unless you opt to take the scenic route, you get there in a pretty concise fashion. So I think the objective here, obviously, you want to drive focus. You want to understand, from your customer, you understand your customer's business challenge. From that customer's business challenge, you can go back from there, understand what your value prop is going to be, what your solution's value prop is going to be. And from there, you want to define your customer demographic and make sure that you're understanding their industry, their segment, their size, their region. And all of that informs your product and how you're interfacing, how you are meeting that customer's needs at the end of the day. So the way this ties back into Salesforce, this dictates how you both engage the Salesforce distribution engine and how successful you'll be at it. And like I said, from there, the steps just fall into logical place.
Excellent, Latrice. And we've seen time and time again, the firms that are getting going in this ecosystem, the ones that pick a segment and pick a gap that they're filling to service a positive outcome for their end customers, they get lift, and they get lift by getting going and momentum, and that Salesforce distribution team reacts to that focus and that discipline to stay there. So why we put 2 bullseyes on the slide here was intentional. Pick one, there's no bad choices, and stay there and drive success within a segment, within a horizontal or within a vertical. Do what you do really, really exceptionally well, and then think about expanding from that standpoint. Next slide, please, Brian. Okay, so Brian and Mike and Asterisk talked about a lot of steps on building the product, joining the program, etc. These are the many commercial steps. Everybody gets through these, but we wanted to just give you in order what these are. First, you've got to get a distribution agreement with Salesforce. You have to build your application and submit it and get it through security review. Once you do those 2 steps, you can get listed on the AppExchange. And you can start thinking about the very important thing about building a demo story, building a customer trial experience, as Asterisk was talking about, and creating a demo org environment that Brian was referencing. So what you build in versus what you demo in, those are 2 different things. But you need to start to get those mechanics going for your application. Finally, Salesforce gives you a lot of tools as a partner. You need to configure those tools in that production environment that Brian referenced. You got to get an end user customer agreement so you're ready to sell somebody something they can sign a piece of paper or DocuSign something to buy from you. And you got to start thinking about customer success. So those are really the top 9 steps. You can break them down over time, and we're going to share some content for you in a minute. But if you could move to the next slide, please, Brian. I wanted to emphasize with Latrice steps 4 through 6. Find a target buyer with a known budget and try to get a slice of that known budget with your application and a sale. That's super, super important when you're trying to get off the ground. And it always begins with a good demo story of outcomes. Why does the buyer with the budget need to buy your solution? What outcome of the business are they going to get? Your demo story, your trial experience, and your demo org all need to line up to that value prop. And if you do that well, you will go to Latrice and her team, and you'll be able to tell a concise, short story, and she'll be able to then connect how to help you expand to different areas within Salesforce as appropriate. So that discipline in of itself is not an easy thing to do well. We put a lot of tools out there to help you in the ecosystem to get better. We'll showcase some of those in a second, but we really wanted to emphasize that point. Latrice, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think, the cool thing about one of the things that a lot of partners come to me is figuring out how to make sense with Salesforce, right? How do we even navigate this whole world, right? And once you get it on the inside, and I think part of it is just we all literally speak, we speak about what the customer wants at the end of the day. I think all of us are always keeping in mind what is going to be the best thing for the customer. What is the customer going to need? And so I would say the one thing I would add here that's not really necessarily surfaced in one of these is know your story from the customer persona standpoint. Always tell it from their point of view. It's really easy for folks to kind of get into these positions and think, oh yeah, when I talk to Salesforce about my product, I want them to know this feature and I want them to know that feature and I want this feature to come to light and that feature. It's really about opening up and saying, this is my customer persona. this is how, you know, I'm Susan, I work at the bank, and this is what I need. This is the problem that I need to solve as Susan who works at the bank. And these are the steps that I'm doing today. This is where it needs to fit, where it needs to improve. And here's how my app actually helps. You know, Susan suddenly lands on my app and is very excited to solve this problem now. And you know, tell it from the point of view of the person who's using it. And that will, I think, really resonate a lot more with everybody. And it helps you to also understand how people, you know, it helps you to just more deeply understand that persona as well.
Excellent. Visualizing those steps is also important. So Brian, if you could go to the next slide, please. We use this tool for every one of our clients and how we interact with our partners at Salesforce, but it really is a planning tool. So you're going to go put on a calendar your timeline to market. You're going to be in the design phase, the build phase, get ready for SecRev, start receiving some of the ISV tools that Salesforce provides you, put a plan together for beta customers, put a support plan in place, and really map out a timeline that's within realistic schedule to help you get into the commercialization zone of driving real revenue. So that's a very helpful tool. Next slide, Brian. What we covered was a lot, and we like to give back to the ecosystem to help people succeed at a commercial level. So on our website, we're not promoting CodeScience, we're promoting the ecosystem and investing in it. We literally have these little short webinars and videos, how to do your partner agreement, how to plan for SecRev. There's a ton of information we put out to help you. By all means, go there, consume the content, learn, and if you have questions, you can engage with either Salesforce or with us. We're happy to get you started. So with that, Brian, I think, and Mike, we're on the open Q&A.
Yeah, Latrice, thank you for not make Sean look too bad. That was good. You didn't shine too bright there. I just want to wrap up saying, having experience with lots of different ecosystems out there, this is the most holistic, supportive ecosystem possible to try to make you successful, to help you along that path. But it does come from having a maniacal focus on the problem that you're solving and the people that you're solving it for. That's where it starts. You have to fall in love with the problem, not the solution you want to build, but to fall in love with that problem. And then we can go about. And I watch, you know, entrepreneurs like Ian Gotts come with this idea and then move through to building this company and being maniacal, not only about that problem, but how does he market it? And what are the gimmicks and the gadgets, and how does he get people to pay attention? How does he socialize it at Salesforce? Those are all the steps. And the last parting thing I would say is that from an Ohana standpoint, this is an environment, an ecosystem where we support each other. Even when we compete with each other, we tend to support each other. And so there's a lot of other entrepreneurs who would love to help you on your first steps, either as bringing your company and helping them launch as an entrepreneur, or as an entrepreneur and trying to make a step on your own. So with that, Jody, I think you were collecting if there are any questions for us, moderating that.
We do not have any questions at this point, but did I just hear a yes? Did somebody just cheer? But I can ask a question of my own. So you all had, well, other people think of other questions, so go ahead and put in the chat. So you have all these great resources, and I think that's awesome. But one of the things that I'm wondering about, does anybody have that initial guide of, does it make sense to take this thing that I built and put it on the AppExchange? And I'm asking that question because every customer I have seems to think, I built this thing in Financial Services Cloud and I should put it on the AppExchange. My thought is already, it's been built, it's called Financial Services Cloud. But do you have that upfront type stuff for people to understand the monetization, all that other good thing, all those good things?
Latrice, how would you go about thinking about, is this something that would be valuable as a product versus just a, you know, open source little GitHub project that somebody can install and take on their own? What's that key differentiation of this will be a commercial success?
Yeah, I think it's communicating. I think a couple of things are coming to mind. It's going out and talking to the folks who are using it and seeing, would they pay for it? Is that something that they want? Talking to the partner community, leveraging that partner community that you have at your resource. That's a bunch of folks who will automatically tell you, you know, whether there's a fit for your solution there. I think to me, I just think, you know, we have such an amazing community of and intrapreneurs to work with. you could easily, start your conversations there.
Yeah, I think that's great. When we talk about that hypothesis in B2B software, it's not only will they use it, but will they pay for it? Do you add enough value that they would spend $1 on it?
Right.
B2C is very different, right? Because often those business models are freemium or ad supported. That's a whole different thing. But the second you have to open up that wallet, that's something you have to test as well.
Makes perfect sense. Hiram, we'll post any links that that have been shared. We'll put them in Slack. And then Chuck asked a question. He'd love to hear more about a demo story and what makes for a good one. I think that's for, who wants to take that one?
I can take that one. We just did a webinar with Encino on a demo optimization. And I also did a webinar with Salesforce on the .org side on best practices around putting a demo together as an ISV. So those are two pieces of content that we'd be happy to share to this community.
Great. So we have another question here. A nice edgy one from Daniel. So a handful of Salesforce ISVs have been acquired by Salesforce, Dealbook, Cloud Craze, etc. And some have been made less relevant by Salesforce by creating their own standard functionality. So any tips on how to either thrive or get acquired or avoid becoming a Salesforce competitor? So there's 3 different routes you can take there.
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. I'll take a shot at it, and then I'd love some other people's feedback on it. So I think a couple things. So number one, the market is always going to be fluid, and there's going to be new solutions that enter and exit the market. So that's one piece of it. And I think as entrepreneurs, we all need to be flexible and nimble and adjust as the market adjusts. Number 2, yes, Salesforce has acquired a number of ISVs, and I think that's that's really exciting as the leader of the ISV segment. That's the ultimate outcome that we're seeking, is we want to build businesses to the point that either they have great outcomes, like they're acquired by a Salesforce or someone else, or they're able to go public, like Encino most recently did, and have fantastic outcomes like that. And number 3, what I've also seen in this role and from being at Salesforce for a while is that when Salesforce acquires a company, it actually creates an amplification effect across that solution. So if you think about SteelBrick, which is CPQ, and you look at the number of CPQ solutions that are in the ecosystem, by the very nature of us acquiring SteelBrick, it's helped amplify and build out an ecosystem of CPQ partners that help solve other challenges in that area. And so I don't know, Latrice, Sean, you've been doing this, Brian, I'd love your feedback on it as well.
Yeah, I'll give the non-Salesforce jersey side of it, because I don't wear a Salesforce jersey, though they are a close partner. I think, in that second part of your question of, hey, Salesforce is now encroaching on my space. I filled this negative space, this huge gap, and now all of a sudden there. Again, maniacal focus on the product and on the problem and on your customer is what will always win. It doesn't matter how large the distribution engine is. So when you look at Salesforce moving in with, their own dialer in both Service Cloud and Sales Cloud, right? TalkDesk is a multi-billion-dollar startup that is moving forward and not hindered by this at all. And it comes from doing it better, right? So when you're in that space, you continue to go. Mike just mentioned Encino, great success story, bank origination, so many PPP loans, and Salesforce is now in the bank origination space, or the loan origination space, right? It's going to happen, take it as a compliment, but then you double and triple down. You just have to stay focused, because I think that as an independent company, you have more resources to focus on that single set of problems you're solving than Salesforce, which is solving thousands of problems out there. So do it better. And that would be my guidance for it.
Yeah, mine would be a good specialist beats a good generalist every day of the week. And Salesforce does an exceptionally good job at being a generalist. So there's a ton of opportunity for any ISV to come in and make a better solution that's more targeted and more focused from an occurrence standpoint. And Mike, I totally agree. Once Salesforce does go into a space through acquisition or innovation, that space gets lift from it, and it opens up opportunity.
Great. We have another question about tips. Do you have any tips and tricks to build a successful team? Did you have to raise money in order to keep going, to build your company? Do you work with that financial side of it and the team building portion?
Do you want CodeScience to take that first? We're happy to.
Yeah, why don't we go with CodeScience on that one first?
Okay, so do we help companies think about avenues for raising money? Yes, all the time. We give out those ideas through a network of folks we work with just to help people with fundraising ideas. Do we help people think about their team structure and content? Yes, that's some of the content I was referencing. We put that together to give tips and coaching. And then we partnered with other companies that are filling gaps for us. For example, we're partnering with a firm that's specializing in doing a go-to-market motion and alliances push as one of many examples. So reach out to us individually if you'd like to on team design. I'm doing a webinar with Conga next week on how to put an alliances team together, for example. So we have a lot of good insight there to help you guys with that thinking and planning.
You know, I think when you're a small entrepreneur, your first job is to prove that your product solves a problem, that somebody will buy it. That's job number one. The next job is to make sure that you have funding, and the next job is just to recruit everyone you know that's awesome to work for you, and to network like hell to keep doing that. And as you grow, you'll end up doing less of the first and more of the second and third. Right? Because you're going to hire a product manager who truly owns your product. You're going to hire an engineering lead who truly owns that. You're going to hire. And, you know, my general theory around growth and scaling a company is you have both the capability and the need to specialize as you grow. So Ian, when you started with Elements, there were 4 of you, and that slide that Sean showed that had all of those different roles, that was Ian just switching his hat a little bit, like 15 degrees throughout the course of the day. And as you get a little bit bigger, you network like hell to find that first product manager or that first alliance manager or the first marketing admin or whoever it is. But I think that's the exciting part for me of being an entrepreneur is you get to play all those roles. In the beginning, you have to play all those roles. There's no one else. You get to figure out what the hell product marketing is. You get to figure out what marketing automation is, what Node is, what technology is, like all that stuff. All that stuff falls to you, and I think that's inspiring. But it takes a certain type of person to get there for it.
Can I just add something?
Yes, please.
When you build when you come up with the first product, it's never right. You always end up pivoting because when you start talking to a customer, they go, I know you thought that was great, but actually for me, it needs to be slightly different, and you're going to pivot and pivot. It's a lot easier to pivot when there are fewer of you, and it's a lot easier to, and the last thing you want to do is start hiring a team, paying salaries, giving away equity, if you really aren't sure about have you got a product lands. So you need to keep that team tight and small until you're really clear about, is this thing something that A, fills a need, B, people will spend money on, and finally, people are prepared to bet their personal liability on because they're bringing it into an org. So it's not just money, it's them saying, I brought this thing in. So you've got to get that right before you go, right, we now think we've got something, now we can accelerate. That's when you start making the bus bigger and bringing more people on. So there are a few points which you've got to get past before you start going, great, now we want to raise some money, now we want to get some more people on board. But you're still evangelizing all the way through because I'm building a pipeline of employees as well as building a pipeline of customers and a pipeline of partners all the way through in terms of that engagement.
Yeah. And the final thought on that, because I know there's a question on funding. Funding sounds glorious and big, and that's what we read about, but gosh, try to go as long as possible without doing it. You want to own your destiny. Having been on all those parts and worked on the VC community and everything else, you have so much more freedom and so much more discipline, and you develop so many skills when you don't have the luxury of buying your way out of every problem. It's pretty big. Sometimes you have to, but if you do it without, boy, the outcomes are so much bigger. I think we have time for one more question in here.
The last question was, how long does the security review normally take?
So there's a couple of processes. Mike, do you want to do it, or do you would you like?
No, I was just going to say it's a lot quicker if you work with a company like CodeScience. But Brian, go ahead.
So security review, I'll just cover at the highest level. So the number one thing for Salesforce is trust, right? That is the number one value. They trust. And you want to, from their perspective, as you introduce a third party coming into your org, it opens up these additional vectors for you. So one would be, hey, your code itself is insecure and opens up problems that could be hacked into. Salesforce is no longer writing it, you are. And so for that type of evaluation, it's white box testing. It is where they look at the actual code. They run what's called the checkmark scanner. It's actually evaluating the code. It's looking for a lot of issues on it. If your product is 100% native, all running on Salesforce, then that's where it stops. They can look at the check marks, they can do an evaluation, come back. That tends to be a little bit of a faster security review itself, the actual review. The next level would be a composite app. So a composite says a portion of my IP sits off platform, whether it's on AWS, whether it's a desktop app, a mobile app, some other type of app. The big concern there is what we call horizontal attacks. So if you recall a couple of years back, Target department store had a credit card hack that came in. The way the hackers worked was they went through the HVAC system, which had a computer, and in one of the stores was actually connected to their main network. And the hackers went through that network to get down to the credit card network to then install the virus on every single credit card machine throughout Target to then create the hack. That horizontal attack is the nightmare of all organizations, which is I protect my shit, why didn't you protect yours? Right? Excuse my language. But that's where we go in testing. So that ends up being penetration testing. So if you integrate with your website, they want to test your website. Is it secure? And that'll be every type of piece that's on there. It could be the actual login screen. It could be inside. It could be your API, any aspect of it. Because if a hacker can get into there and then get the OAuth and admin key for a financial services company, what a nightmare headline that will be, right? So they're going to use tools like the burp scanner to actually go and do penetration on that. So you have to do your first version of scanning, submit that to Salesforce. They go back and validate that and verify that and do some other secret sauce to make sure that you've been tested and properly safe. So that process is controlled by a couple things. One, how many people are in the queue? When you get ready to go to Dreamforce, Dreamforce, moment of silence. It'll be back. So when you get ready to go, there are hundreds of new ISVs that are launching. So they set a security deadline for that. Everybody gets in on that same date. Well, that creates a backup, so it takes a little bit longer. Number two, how complex is your app? We have clients that are literally submitting 6 products at the same time that interact through that. It takes weeks to actually fully test that and look at all the different vulnerabilities that are in there. So it's not an easy thing to say this is exactly how much time, because there are a lot of variables that go into it. But hopefully that gave you a little bit of color of what security review is. Over 50% of clients fail the first time. It's a hard thing to actually get through. For good reason. That's why so many of the Fortune 500 install it. All right, I know there's more on your agenda tonight. I want to thank everybody for inviting us, for keeping this going through COVID. It's awesome. I have fond memories of attending with everybody in San Francisco, so it's awesome to see so many familiar faces. And thanks to my co-panelists for the incredible information that you provided.
Thank you. If everybody wants to unmute real quick
everyone.
and give a round of applause.
Roaring.